India to replace China as the most populous nation, angering CCP media. Lines being crossed, China, Iran adopting new tactics to harass critics on U.S. soil. Pentagon leak, China's Hikvision preys on U.S. supply chain despite ban. New ultra-infectious COVID subvariant, Arcturus, attacks China, rare symptoms discovered. China restricts exit of politically sensitive persons from the country.
India will replace China as the most populous nation, with nearly 3 million more people than China by the middle of this year, according to a United Nations report published on April 19th. The latest official data from the State of World Population report by the United Nations Population Fund shows the Indian population for mid-2023 reaching 1.4286 billion, versus 1.4257 billion for China. The data sparked excitement in India, as many local media outlets on Wednesday reported that the country officially became the world's top populous nation. However, state-controlled media China Central Television, or CCTV, is unhappy with the news in China. CCTV accused Western media of badmouth, saying that their reports only focus on China losing its title as the world's most populous country, but ignore China's development. It claimed that Western media reports in recent years were that China's development was in big trouble. It noted that the global economy would suffer when China's demographic dividend disappears. CCTV also claimed that the United States is stepping up efforts to contain China's development and advocate further decoupling, and found new hype points from the United Nations report. Last year, official data showed China's population declined for the first time in 6 decades, signaling a long period of a population drop in the future, hurting its economic development. The Chinese Communist Party is known for demographic data manipulation, so the delay in its 2020 census data was suspicious, and experts questioned whether the actual population figure is much lower than the questionable official data. China and Iran are increasingly becoming more blatant in a bid to silence dissidents in the US and influence American policy, according to an FBI statement reported by Reuters on April 19th. During a press briefing on transnational repression, FBI counterintelligence officials asked victims to voice their thoughts. The agency said it was monitoring a rising trend of foreign authoritarian regimes breaking US laws to intimidate specific communities. According to the sources, governments have occasionally hired private investigators to spy on opposition individuals, and federal prosecutors have brought several cases involving this practice. One FBI counterintelligence official said, "A lot of these are new tactics and lines that are being crossed that we have not seen China and Iran do on US soil in previous investigations." He added that the FBI sought to alert state and local law enforcement, the private investigation industry, and the public about these developments. According to officials, the objectives of transnational repression schemes are complex and occasionally include attempts to sway US policy through malign influence tactics. Another FBI counterintelligence official said, "We've really seen an inflection point in the tactics and tools, and the level of risk and the level of threat that have changed over the past few years." The warning comes just 2 days after federal agents detained 2 New Yorkers for allegedly running a covert Chinese police station in Manhattan's Chinatown. Prosecutors claimed the arrests were part of a larger American government crackdown on Beijing's alleged targeting of dissidents. China's sanctioned Hikvision allegedly uses a white labeling scheme to sneak its products into the US government. The information came from the leaked Pentagon documents that the BBC saw and reported on April 18th. According to the outlet, Hikvision, a Chinese surveillance technology giant, is partnering with resellers who would rebrand their products and market them to US government buyers, a process called white labeling. Washington had already outlawed Hikvision products from its government supply chains over national security concerns. Last November, regulators extended the measure to the entire country. As the BBC reported, the Pentagon document warned that Hikvision is creating potential vectors for Chinese espionage and its efforts to obscure exports. The surveillance firm is purportedly working with Chinese intelligence agencies as well. The report said that Hikvision items were still purchasable by customers in the US government as of this January through the white labeling scheme. It commented that products from the Chinese firm would plausibly endure in American government supply chains despite existing bans, considering its covert attempts to maintain exports to the US and its allies. Answering BBC queries about the document, a Hikvision spokesperson rejected any law-breaking or wrong labeling of its products. The company, which is causing alarm in Western countries about its link to the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, did not answer inquiries about its ties to Chinese intelligence agencies. Neither did it address whether it was passing on client information to them. Hikvision has also met legal objections and barriers from several other countries, including the UK, Australia, Denmark, and the European Union, over its alleged involvement in China's mass surveillance and oppression of Uyghurs.
The new Omicron subvariant XBB.1.16, also known as Arcturus, has appeared in China. This country has recently recorded 15 cases of XBB.1.16 and 2 instances of XBB.1.16.1. In India, more than 10,000 cases of XBB.1.16 subvariants were confirmed in just a few days. The XBB.1.16 subvariant is a combination of 2 subvariants of the Omicron variant. A University of Tokyo preprint study shows the transmission rate of XBB.1.16 is 1.17 to 1.27 times that of XBB.1 and XBB.15. It is considered the most infectious subvariant of COVID. The World Health Organization, WHO, revealed on January 23rd that XBB.1.16 was first detected in India. Then new cases have been continuously detected in 29 countries, including the UK, the US, Australia, Japan, Singapore, Italy, Denmark, Austria, and Germany. Most cases occur in India and Nepal. India reported more than 7,000 on April 12th, 10,158 on April 13th, and 11,109 cases on April 14th, indicating the number of infections is increasing. On March 22nd, the WHO classified XBB.1.16 as a new variant under monitoring, meaning the variant has genetic changes that could affect its characteristics as a virus, including a possible growth advantage over other variants, but the epidemiological impact is not clear. According to the WHO, there is an additional mutation in the spike protein of XBB.1.16. As a result, speculations are that it will have increased infectivity and pathogenicity. While this may mean that it could spread more quickly, there's no indication that it will lead to more severe cases. The Washington Post cited Paul Hunter, a professor of medicine at the University of East Anglia, on April 14th, saying it will probably become the dominant variant for a while in the US and Europe and most countries around the world. Vipin Vashishta, former Indian Academy of Pediatrics Committee on Immunizations convener, said, Arcturus causes a few symptoms in children like high fever, cough, itchy conjunctivitis, or pink eye without pus, but with sticky eyes. He added that this is something he never saw in the earlier COVID waves. Nebraska Medicine's Trolson Eye Institute said in a blog post, the virus has been found in the eye's tear film, a thin layer of fluid covering the eye's outer surface. The virus in the eye's tear film can lead to conjunctivitis. As for whether the current vaccines are effective against Arcturus, experts say the relevant cases and obtained data are still insufficient and it is still too early to draw conclusions.
The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP's efforts to control every aspect of its citizens' lives seem to have no end. But once again, the target appears to be those considered politically sensitive. Testimonies from travelers tell of increased control and inspection of passengers attempting to leave the country, including their identity, cash, and valuables. Shenzhen and Zhuhai in Guangdong are the main land entry and exit gateways in China. Before the pandemic, some 300,000 people a day moved through Shenzhen alone. While activity decreased after the pandemic, controls have significantly increased. In an interview with Radio Free Asia, human rights advocates in Hunan and Hubei said that a few days earlier, they tried to cross the border through Shenzhen and Zhuhai. Still, border inspectors prevented them because they could endanger the country if they left the territory. Mr. Liu, who did not want to be identified for security reasons, told of his attempted trip to Malaysia from Macau. He was stopped during the security check and questioned for an hour while they searched his belongings. Then, after notifying his city's State Security Bureau, he was released. After asking for explanations, the authorities said he was blacklisted in the system, and that according to Exit and Entry of the People's Republic of China, Item 5 of Article 12 of the Management Law, may endanger national security and interests. A Hong Kong tourist, Miss Zeng, told how while a security officer searched her bag at the port of Shenzhen, she saw another woman's $14,500 in cash seized. The woman was also fined $3,000. She was apparently on a blacklist. Ms. Zeng also said that Chinese border customs have stricter controls on citizens leaving the country. Recently, if you leave China to go abroad, the document checker will ask you a lot of questions. If you fly from Hong Kong to other countries, they will ask you what you are doing and ask you to bring relevant documents. Several human rights defenders escaped from China across the Laotian border and went to Thailand intending to reach the US or another democratic country. Because of their status as politically sensitive people, they have difficulty obtaining a passport, and even if they do, they are not allowed to leave the country. Human rights activist Mr. Zhao told Radio Free Asia that many human rights activists or lawyers had been prevented from leaving the country recently. This time, several people have been charged at the border and have not left the country. Our local state security called me and told me I had to reapply for the passport. They wouldn't let me leave, and the national security said I had to take out the passport. But whether I could leave was another thing. The pressure against Chinese dissidents and the excessive control of citizens has turned China into a vast concentration camp, where even the most basic freedoms are restricted.